a body projected upward from the level ground at an angle of 50 degrees with the horizontal has an initial speed of 40 meters per second. What angle with the horizontal will it strike with? Now, in our previous lesson, we derived the formula for landing velocity. So that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to be using that. Now, don't forget, this body was projected from this place, like this. Now, it does two things. It gets the mass height. Don't forget, according to the question, it was projected from one level ground to another level ground. So it gets to this place, and don't forget, the first stage is mass height. Second stage is the stage whereby the body is being sent from mass height down to the, down to the ground, or probably level ground, or down to another place. So the body goes out like this at 50 degrees. Now it hits the ground here. When it hits the ground with a landing velocity in two dimensions. Now there's a final velocity, and this goes into component along x and along y. Now don't forget, it was said in our previous lesson that there's no change in velocity, or there's no newness actually, along x, since the body is not moving on the ground. There's no acceleration on the ground. So if the initial speed is u sine theta, then the final speed also is going to be the same thing as initial speed. So that's that. But for y, this is just along x-axis. But for y-axis, it's quite different. So let's get the values of our initial velocity along x-axis and initial velocity along y-axis. Let's do that. So once we get our value for initial velocity along the y-axis and x-axis, then we can easily get our final velocities along the x-axis and also along the y-axis. So let's quickly do that. If you look at this, this is u here. You see here, this was the initial speed, 40 meters per second. 40 meters per second is 50 degrees. So along y-axis, along x-axis. Opposite of hypotenuse, don't forget, uy is u sine theta. So what's the uy? The uy is, what do we have? 40 meters per second times sine 50 degrees. While the ux is 40 meters per second times cos 50 degrees. So let's get our values. The uy is, let's quickly use our calculator to get that done. 40 times sine 50 degrees. Initial speed along y-axis. That'll give us 30.64. That's about 30.6, about 31 meters per second. So along x-axis, that is 40 times cos 50 degrees. That will give us